Hello, and welcome to another episode of Solipsist Watched, where this week I watched Men in Black International from 2019. Now, how do I get into this? I had kind of forgotten that this movie existed, but it was in my library. And the reason it's probably in my library is because the Men in Black series is a little bit nostalgic to me. I think to a lot of people who grew up in the 90s and 2000s, it's a somewhat nostalgic series. Even if we go back, though, it was never one that was particularly great. It was not a cinematic masterpiece at any point, and has certainly gone downhill throughout its history. I am about 90% sure I've watched Men in Black 3. I've watched Men in Black 1 many, many times. It's a movie I still that I still have a great fondness for. Men in Black 2 I think I've watched twice. And I am 90% sure that I've watched Men in Black 3. And frankly, I don't really feel the compulsion to go rewatch it if I have watched it, or watch it if I haven't. But I knew I hadn't watched this, and I thought I should finally get around to it. I know it was not super well received when it came out. I've heard mixed tales of it over the years, but I needed something this week that wasn't going to test my brain too much, and man. I didn't have high hopes, but I was very disappointed in this movie. I'm not going to bury the lead on this one. I have almost nothing good to say about this movie. Possibly the best thing I can say about it is that it is mostly inoffensive. And it did not ask me to think very much. But that's about as far as it goes. It definitely feels like a movie from the very start that was conceived of to, one, keep a film franchise alive for a little while longer in the hopes of milking more money out of it, as many movie companies, but especially Sony, are wont to do. And then also to try and capitalize. I'm going to be cynical on this one and say that in an effort to capitalize on the popularity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, and to as an active spite to get Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson, in a movie that was not in the MCU together. That feels personal. That doesn't feel accidental. Doesn't feel like they just, bumped into each other. And I don't know the details of it, but I'm going to go conspiracy theory on this one and say it's a little bit too convenient to not be very, very deliberate. So, did they do anything right? It's hard to say. To be honest, one of the glaring things that stood out to me throughout the whole film is it felt like a serious amount of content was probably left on the cutting room floor. Almost every scene exists almost completely in a vacuum. Any kind of continuity between scenes is almost completely absent. Everything just sort of happens because there was something that needed to happen in the scene. Well, not even that something needed to happen in the scene. They need the scene to have content, and therefore an event happens. And that's about it. The actual continuity scene to scene is very thin. Any plot line that's present is barely present. And I found out after watching it, I was reading up on it a little bit. Apparently this was a developmental disaster. Apparently the director, F. Gary Gray, who is actually a director I think is pretty good. I like a bunch of his films. Apparently he and one of the producers were fighting all the time, to the point that F. Gary Gray wanted to leave the movie several times, but was convinced to come back. And the producer was apparently taking up directing duties at some points. I always lean towards the director's probably between a director and a producer. The director's probably got more of a vision and less of a money mind to it. And knowing F. Gary Gray's background, I don't think he's like a fantastic artistic director, but I know he can do better than this. So whatever disaster happened in the background here, whatever version, apparently there were two different cuts, one from the director and one from the producer, and they tested both and decided to go with the producer's one. But I don't know. This movie really could not get a whole lot worse. It is inoffensive in the worst way, though. It is inoffensive if you are like plastered or just want to completely turn off your brain and just need some like shiny flashy lights to show on a screen. Then there are 10,000 other things you should be watching instead that are better than this. But this is technically fine in that respect. But that also means that it commits my, as I often talk about, cardinal sin of cinema, which is being boring. This movie is boring. And for a movie that's supposed to be about like an interstellar defense force and spy stuff and aliens and all that, being that really really kind of grinds in how bad it is for something like this to be boring. But it is truly dull. It does not seem to understand anything about what is charming about the Men in Black series in general. And in fact, I have a hard time believing this movie isn't worse than Men in Black 3, which again, I'm only mostly sure I have watched, because this movie has no charm, no substance, nothing. I obviously know that Chris Hemsworth and Tessa Thompson can act better than this. I also know that Liam Neeson can act better than this. And I don't think he's a good actor. I think his entire career is kind of a joke to begin with. And that's another reason I ended up coming to this movie in the first place, is because recently he was in that, he was in the, what do you call it? Naked Gun reboot that for some reason exists. I'm not watching that. Anyway, tangent aside, where do I even go with this? Oh, one other note about the fighting. Apparently the script was so bad after all the edits and re-edits from the producer and stuff, that Hemsworth and Thompson apparently hired their own dialogue writers, and because they couldn't make heads or tails of the dailies they were getting. I don't know. I mean, that's what Wikipedia says. I don't have a citation on that, but yeah, I mean, that makes sense, because the dialogue throughout this entire film is trash. It is nothing. It says nothing. It means nothing. It builds nothing. There is no arc to this movie. The bare bones plot is the same as every plot from this series of there needs to, there's a MacGuffin that is dangerous and there are bad people who want it. Oh no, what are we going to do? But then they execute on that in none of the interesting ways. We don't learn anything. First of all, if you're going to get away from having Will Smith and Tommy Lee Jones, which makes sense, because I mean, they probably shouldn't have been in 3 either. They're old and it's not the same as when the first one was made, let alone when the second one was made, let alone the first. So phasing them out and phasing in a new generation, smart, a good move for this series. If you want to retain an IP's freshness, that means you have to make progressive changes to it. And so bringing on a new cast makes sense. However, if you cast new people that means you have a responsibility to write some character definition into them. Because one of the things that makes the original Men in Black so charming is the odd couple nature of J and K. They play off each other wonderfully because we've got, you know, the dry, unreactive, kind of grumpy old man character, and then the, you know, the young guy who's sort of, you know, playing by his own rules and upsetting the status quo, that kind of stuff, and is played more for the comedic side. And you don't have to repeat the sort of same kind of buddy cop system in a new movie, but you need to build character up. You need to build character in any movie, but especially in a buddy cop framework, I have to care about the characters. I have to care about what happens to them. I have to like them. And I don't like either of the characters because I don't know anything about them. They almost start to set something up for me to like or at least care about the characters. I'm just going to go ahead and start and talk about elements of the plot because this is barely spoilers and you shouldn't really care anyway. So Tessa Thompson's character is set up as a kid who, you know, happened to have an alien sighting and then was like motivated in her adult life to find out like what the Men in Black was and then become part of it. Now, the jump from the very start, this is a problem because the jump from I was a kid and saw an alien to I now am actively trying to join the MIB, which everybody's telling me doesn't exist. That happens over a course of minutes and has no prompting and no build-up. All we get is that like she seems pretty smart and pretty capable and like started doing stuff on her own because people were calling her crazy, and that all sets up for her being a more interesting character if it's a little bit of a speedy rush to the finish there. All sets her up for as somebody who's intelligent and capable and like doesn't need any explanation for why she has the abilities she has. And then the rest of the movie completely ignores any of those skills. She might as well be any schmuck off the street because she seems the only quality that she has, which is actually a negative one, is that she's not that surprised that there's a bunch of aliens. She doesn't have much of a reaction, and that's kind of it, because she never exhibits any of the things that they show off in that like pseudo montage to show that she has skills. She kind of never comes up again. I mean, in a very practical way it sort of does because she can shoot a gun, but that's about it. It's never referenced again, and in fact her character after that basically gets sabotaged and played down the entire time, and gets no definition or growth other than all the growth happens in the first 10 minutes. That's basically it. Hemsworth's character, meanwhile, is set up as this sort of... I was trying to figure out what they were doing with him because he seemed like he was playing this sort of like, you know, muscle-bound idiot kind of character initially, where it's like, oh, he's the action hero who, you know, doesn't play by the rules. It's like, I almost thought they were making fun of the type of action hero that came out of the mid-2010s, who sort of evolved out of the 80s and 90s, of course, to be this sort of this dashing rogue type. But I thought they were making fun of it because he's kind of an idiot and he's kind of mean, and people around him, well, almost everybody seems to like him except for one side character who seems to be out for him, except for that side character also seems to be a jerk, so you don't want to side with him either. So I'm trying to figure out what's going on with Hemsworth's character. Okay, is he actually, is this all bravado? Is he going to have a breaking point where he says, oh, I don't actually believe in myself that much. I don't know why everybody else does, and I'm keeping up a facade. And no, basically never. There is a reason. It's revealed at some point to no fanfare at all. It's just a plot beat that sucks. But he never learns anything. He never develops in any way, and the chemistry between these two is garbage. They don't have, and I don't mean romantic chemistry, thank God. They don't seem to, okay, they do actually seem to try right at the end to maybe hint at romantic chemistry, but it could just be so badly produced that it's hard to read whether it's meant to be framed as romantic chemistry or just like friendly camaraderie. It's just framed really, really badly. But thankfully, they don't try and go that angle very much in terms of trying to make them romantically interested, because that would be even more disastrous. So they have no chemistry as a team on screen. They bicker, they don't particularly like each other, but they never have the buddy cop thing where they kind of resolve and work together. I mean, they do in the sense that they don't like each other and then they do like each other and then they don't and do. And there's some back and forth, but it has zero stakes, it has zero interest, and you can't just go to, okay, we're fine now. The point that kind of arc has to resolve in, oh, now we're really a team. It has to have like a big upwards trajectory towards being more powerful together, to being like really bound together as a team. And it doesn't do that at all. Oh, I almost forgot, there's a little animated character, mascot type of character, who is both completely pivotal to the plot and seems like a complete afterthought, like a joke, like not explained in any way, is set up in one scene that is never explained, shows up randomly in another scene that is never explained, and then is suddenly part of the team for no reason throughout the entire thing. And isn't a character either, is even less of a character than these two main morons. So that's not charming either. Actually, I take that back. There is one sight gag. My only laugh during the entire movie is a sight gag with that animated character, and it has nothing to do with the animated character. It's just like suddenly in the middle of this very badly produced movie, there's a Looney Tunes-esque sight gag that I thought was funny, and that, because I knew exactly how it was going to play out, and it made me chuckle, and that was about it. That's the only laugh I got out of the entire film. So you have all of these characters who have no development, no character, are acting really poorly because they're reading off of scripts that are hashed together out of who knows where, apparently, and a plot that is at best thin on the ground. So then to the production. This movie is ugly. It's just bad. I mean, it looks very Sony. And if you've watched a lot of Sony films from sort of the 2000s, 2010s, I think you know what I mean already. You can even see it. You can see it on the frickin' cover of the movie art that's here in front of us. It's all the glowy lights. I don't know why this is such a Sony thing, but it is. It's just glowy lights and CGI. And that's not to say that there isn't a bunch of CGI in the original Men in Black. And some of it doesn't look great, but it's charming. The original Men in Black understood that the best way to get across that nothing needed to be considered remarkable was that it did exactly what it needed to do. Yes, it has these absurd moments. It has like these shiny chrome guns and aliens and spaceships and all these other things, and a car that goes really fast. But it only pulls those things out exactly when it needs them, and it doesn't try and over-explain them. It doesn't try and give you a background. It's just like you're taking a lot of it from Will Smith's perspective of being like a total newbie, not familiar with any of this, and you just have to like listen to J. Fuck, I got it backwards. And just like roll with it. And this movie doesn't understand that at all. So it just keeps out pulling more and more flashy things to shove in your face and say, this is cool, right? And you go, I don't know what that is, but and I don't know why you've even done it. The original Men in Black series has the sense of like these very normal human people assisted by technology that never needs to be explained, to do pretty benign stuff. You know, they're basically janitors for all intents and purposes. They're both proverbially and literally cleaning up messes. And so the nonchalance of it, the non-action hero stylings of their characters was kind of key to building this dichotomy between this absurd world and these normal people. And this movie doesn't understand that either. It goes towards, okay, every one of our agents is an action hero. Every one of them has like every tool at their disposal with no explanation. They make gags out of that, of like, hey, isn't it handy that we've got every tool? I mean, sure, but part of the charm of the characters in the original movies is that they are outmanned and outgunned a lot of the time and have to make do. They're kind of scrappy and smart instead of pull out bigger gun. Haha, isn't it funny? I bet we'll pull out bigger gun. That's not funny, and it's not charming, and it's not smart, and it's not impressive from an action, like an action scene scenario either. So you've got all of these like missed understandings of what makes the franchise and the characters interesting, or how to present them in a way that is like compelling. And then you've got what most of the rest of the movie is, which in addition to all of, there aren't that many scenes with a lot of dialogue in them. And what's dialogue, like I've already addressed, what dialogue's in there is not very good. So what remains? It's action scenes. The original Men in Black really doesn't have action scenes. I mean, it does a little bit. It has scenes of like a few scenes of running, a few scenes of shooting guns, but it's mostly comedy. It's mostly dialogue. And and part of that is world building. And so instead, this movie does the typical 2010s action movie thing, and it action movies all over the place. It's just at the drop of the hat, they're having an action scene because I don't know why they didn't write their way out of it. Instead, there now has to be a car chase. There now has to be a shootout. There now has to be a foot race. For some reason, we won't even get into the contrivances around why, like, a couple of the main antagonist characters are just able to be wherever they need to be at the right time, magically, just so that a scene can happen in a location. But there's all of these bombastic action scenes that are just really generally pretty poorly produced. They're very over the top. They're very tropified. They're not interesting in any of the ways that, there's a chase with an alien motorcycle, except for there's nothing special about it. It could have just been a motorcycle and it would have been more compelling, or at least the same amount, because that doesn't matter. None of the like alien stuff, none of the Men in Black stuff about the movie ever goes into the action scenes. So foot races are foot races, car races are car races, fist fights are fist fights, and gunfights are gunfights. It's all the same. There's no sense of scale or proportion or stakes really at all. It's all very action movie of at the end of this scene, nothing will have changed. We will just change location and we'll do it again. And so the most bored I was watching the action scenes where nothing's happening, where I'm just watching a CGI fest of things zooming around and bad cinematography, or cinematography to hide bad bad fighting or whatever. And then it's all composited real ugly. It just no part of the CGI ever looks good. I'm never at any point happy or interested in it. There are extended scenes that where not basically either almost nothing or literally nothing on screen is real. It's all CG, and it's like you were really proud of this CGI transformation thing, and it looks terrible. It's just not impressive. I'm not sold on it. I don't think it's real, and I don't think it looks good either, whether or not it's real. God, what else? There are just so many editing problems shot to shot where like they clearly did not have the shots required, and so characters' faces change because they do two angles and the two faces don't meet, and so they're making one face in one shot and the next frame they're making a different face from a different angle. Just that's all over the place. There's so many little editing problems like that. The it's not as egregious as it could be, but the product placement is really aggressive. I have no idea why they did it the way they did it. The most notable ones were they're outside of a building and they look down and there's a bunch of Amazon packages. And while it doesn't say like big Amazon on the side, everybody knows what an Amazon package looks like. And the gag is, they haven't picked up their packages. And there's like a big pile of them. And it's like, that's about 3 days worth. Haha. That's not funny. That's actually like a huge indictment of the nature of our monopolistic capitalist status at the moment. It's a nightmare. Plus, that has to have been product placement, surely. And then there's the cars. I think all of the cars are probably sponsored, but the one that really sticks out is because the original Men in Black car is so iconic. When they just unveil a car and it's just like, that's just a Lexus. It's just a Lexus. Like the original Men in Black car, they weren't trying to sell a car, and now it's okay. You're trying to sell me a Lexus sports car. I get it. I see it. It looks okay. Can we move on? And they're like, yeah, that's a good looking car. And it's so bad. There's a couple of others that are less egregious, but it just stuck out so badly to me. It's just so ill-paced, and the ad inserts make it worse. What else is wrong? There was something towards the end of the movie that I should have taken notes, but I couldn't commit to even taking notes on something this bad. It's just atrocious top to bottom. Let me go through my typical list here. Is there anything else that there was some really awful music that has to be, I have to assume, I didn't check, I have to assume it's a Sony Music licensed artist who got their music put in this movie, but it's just like, it's completely out of place. It's really loud, and it is referencing, the lyrics are very clear, and they are completely inappropriate to the point, like, the lyrics reference a location on Earth, and the scene is taking place basically on the other side of the world, and it's so weird. The song sucks too. Like, the song just sucks, but the lyrics being like, this is about a place somewhere completely different. It was so hilariously bad and out of place. Oh God, it hurt my brain. What else? The audio editing all around was real bad. There's also some weird effects going on in some of I don't know if it was, I don't think it was the streaming that I was watching. As far as I can tell, there's some weird post-production going on some of the stuff here because it doesn't look, it looks motion smooth in certain scenes, and it confuses me because it's still only 24 frames a second. I don't understand what they did to make it look like that. Maybe it could just be an artifact of the CG, the amount of CGI that they're putting into the scenes, that it no longer looks right. Well, like when you do a panning shot at 24 frames a second, it looks a certain way universally. But if you mess with it enough, you can make it look wrong even without changing the frame rate. And I don't know what they did there, but there's some weird stuff in there where that just is broken. What else? Yeah, I mean, so many of the locations are all CG or almost all CG. The places that are real all feel like excuses to go to. Actually, no, because, you know, they call this Men in Black International, and for some reason they spend this movie going all around the world, except for almost all the locations they go to either were fake, either were done in CG, or were presented so poorly that they could have been done in CG and substituted for some other location, or just, you know, done in a lot somewhere. So yeah, that's terrible. Like the costuming and the sets are just nothing, and the costumes are actually, some of the sets are really bad. Some of the sets are like weirdly lit and weirdly strewn with stuff, and not in a way that does anything to frame. Like, you can have a weird room that has a purpose cinematically because it frames a shot a certain way or keeps certain things in and out of frame. A lot of the rooms just look messy for no reason. There's no sense of shot composition in almost any location anywhere. It feels like the set designers were making stuff completely separate from anyone who was doing any direction. So I don't know what happened all with that. And the costumes are real. I mean, they look cheap, frankly. And it's weird to have to say, hey, a black suit looks cheap, but they mostly look bad. There's nothing modern about them. There's nothing interesting about them. There's no style to them. And I know that the point is, yes, the Men in Black are not supposed to stand out, but that's different from having them styled or not. You can have a black suit that looks good, and you can have a black suit that looks bad. And you can have both of them without being flashy or ridiculous. In fact, it's kind of weird because Tessa Thompson's outfit is like, it's like double-breasted I think it's double-breasted at the bottom of her suit coat for some reason, and it's also like flared in a strange way that doesn't make sense to me. And also she's wearing heels. Like they're kind of chunky heels. They're like a more like a boot, but they're definitely, they've got like a 2-inch lift on them, and it's just a weird, it's for everything else looking cheap and not thought about. There's just these little other things where it's like, you thought about something here, but you didn't really think it out, and you didn't do a good job at it. What else? Oh, they make a whole big deal about a character who's like they basically say horrible things about a character, this character who shows up later, who's CGI, and they're like, oh, this guy's ugly or whatever. And then you meet the guy, and the characters are the, you know, what are their names? M and H, are like, oh yeah, he's ugly. And I'm looking at the guy going, that just looks like an alien with a slightly lumpy head. Pretty much every alien in Star Wars is uglier than that thing. What are you talking about? It's so It's so unremarkable. There's very few aliens actually in this entire thing. Most of there are more different types of CGI aliens in Men in Black 1 than there are in Men in Black International. I'm pretty sure. Most of the people who pass for aliens in Men in Black International are people with makeup and wigs. And that's not necessarily wrong. But that's not necessarily a bad thing, but it's done so badly that it is a bad thing. Oh man, there's just everything wrong with this film. And yet it manages to be almost completely inoffensive, other than just being dull and confusing. It's not even confusing. It's too lacking in substance to be confusing. It's just incoherent instead. Men in Black as a franchise, I think, has a lot of potential. As with many things, there's no reason you can't like go crazy with the premise. The Men in Black premise can go any number of directions, and especially if you are explicitly branding it as a spin-off, there's no real need to adhere to a lot of the standards. Actually, that's another thing. I thought this movie was going to be full of either nostalgia bait or like references, just general references to prior things in prior films, and that's almost absent. There's a couple of characters who do actually show up again, which is fine. That's not really a reference. They're just present. And there's a couple of there's like the what do you call them? The thin men, or not the thin men, the stick guys. Like they show up again as a sort of a gag being present that doesn't need to be there except for that it's a gag, but they actually avoid that mostly. And weirdly, I'm gonna be on the side of this movie is so bad that at least if it had random nostalgia bait, you could go, oh, that's kind of charming. Because comparatively speaking, the rest of the movie is so lacking in anything that somehow that would make it better. Oh, yeah, I'm sure I have more things to say about how bad this is, but I didn't take notes again. I couldn't commit to that. And it's probably best for me to just wipe this one from my memory. It's so uncharming. So it's surely it's the death knell of the series, right? Surely they would never dredge up this IP again to try again. Probably do worse. Anyway. Thank you guys for watching another episode of Solipsist Watched. I'll see you guys next time.